This is not an accident. You did not stumble into this moment by chance, and this message did not find you randomly. Something far deeper is at work right now. Beneath the surface of your day, beyond the noise of routine and responsibility, heaven has been moving toward you. At first, it may have felt like a whisper, an unexplainable stirring, a quiet sense that something was shifting. But now that whisper has grown into a roar. Heaven is interrupting this moment on purpose, because timing matters, and this moment has been marked. As the atmosphere shifts, you may feel a weight in your spirit, not fear, but significance. This is not just another encouraging word or inspirational message meant to make you feel better for a few minutes. This is a divine interruption carrying urgency. Heaven is drawing close, not to alarm you, but to awaken you. What is being revealed now has been forming in silence for a long time, and it can no longer remain hidden. And hear this clearly. While the world may feel chaotic and uncertain, this message is not about everything happening around you. It is personal. It is specific. It is about your daughter. Right now, something sacred surrounds her life. Not just protection, though protection is present. Not just potential, though potential is undeniable. What surrounds her is purpose, and more than that, prophetic destiny that has already been decreed in the unseen. Long before circumstances tried to define her, heaven had already spoken. Scripture reminds us in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That truth does not stop with her. It extends to you. Because you were chosen for this role, you are not simply a parent by biology or responsibility. You are a guardian, a steward, a vessel entrusted with something precious. God did not assign her life to you randomly. He trusted you with her journey, even in seasons when you doubted yourself or felt unprepared. This is not an ending. What you may have perceived as delay, struggle, or silence has actually been preparation. Something is being born not just in her, but through your obedience, your prayers, your endurance. The story is turning, not closing, and what is about to unfold carries generational weight and future impact. So stay with me until the very end. Do not rush past this moment. We will seal this word with prayer, aligning what heaven has already declared with what must now be activated on earth. This is a sacred pause, a divine invitation, and it has your name on it. Before you ever held her in your arms, before you heard her cry or learned the shape of her personality, a decision had already been made in heaven. Your daughter was chosen before you knew. Her arrival was not an interruption to your life plan, nor was it an accident shaped by circumstance. It was intentional, precise, and timed according to divine wisdom. Heaven does not improvise with souls like hers. She was sent with purpose woven into her breath, carrying a calling that existed long before language could name it. And just as intentional as her birth was the choice of who would carry her into the world. You were not selected because you were perfect, flawless, or fully prepared. You were chosen because you were trusted. God does not look for polished vessels. He looks for faithful ones. He entrusted her to you knowing your heart, your capacity to love, your willingness to grow, and even your vulnerabilities. What felt like inadequacy at times was never disqualification. It was humility being shaped into stewardship. You were appointed as her guardian not merely to raise her, but to protect, cover, and guide what heaven placed inside her. From the beginning, there were signs. You may remember moments when she seemed different, deeper, more sensitive, more aware than others her age. Perhaps she felt things intensely, asked questions beyond her years, or carried emotions that didn't fit neatly into expectations, where others may have rushed to label her as too much, too emotional, or too intense. Heaven saw something else entirely. What the world called excess, God calls evidence. That sensitivity is not weakness, it is discernment in seed form. That depth is not burden, it is capacity. This is where the reframing begins. Too much, was never the truth. Set apart is. She was not designed to blend in or shrink herself to make others comfortable. She was designed to carry weight, spiritual weight, emotional intelligence, and purpose that requires depth. And you, standing beside her, were meant to help her understand that difference is not something to outgrow, but something to steward. So if your spirit recognizes this truth, if something within you resonates and quietly says, "This explains so much," type, "Amen." Let it be more than a comment, let it be agreement. Agreement that her life is intentional. Agreement that your role is sacred. Agreement that what once felt confusing is now being clarified. Heaven chose her. Heaven chose you. And now, understanding is beginning to rise. What you are witnessing in your daughter right now is not rebellion, it is awakening. A prophetic turning point has arrived, and it is unfolding from the inside out. The subtle shifts you've noticed, the changes in her tone, her questions, her silence, even her sudden clarity, are not signs of defiance. They are signs of alignment. Something within her is stirring, responding to a divine signal that cannot be silenced or postponed. When heaven calls, the soul recognizes it before the mind can fully explain it. This inner stirring may feel unfamiliar, even unsettling at times, because awakening often disrupts what once felt predictable. She may begin to resist narratives that no longer fit her spirit. She may question assumptions, step back from roles she once accepted, or sense that she is meant for something deeper than what the world is offering. This is not confusion, it is discernment coming alive. Heaven's design is beginning to rise above the world's script, and when that happens, transformation is inevitable. The world may try to label this season as instability, attitude, or distance, but heaven calls it preparation. God has always done his most important work in hidden seasons, long before public clarity appears. Think of Samuel, still a child, hearing a voice in the night that no one else recognized. He wasn't rebellious, he was responsive. He didn't understand the full weight of the call, but heaven was already speaking, and his spirit was already listening. In the same way, your daughter is tuning into a frequency few around her can hear. And just as Samuel's calling was connected to Eli's guidance, your daughter's awakening is deeply connected to you. Like Hannah, your prayers may have been whispered, your sacrifices unseen, your tears shed in private. You may have wondered if they mattered. Hear this clearly. They did. Heaven never ignores quiet faithfulness. Every sleepless night, every moment you chose love over fear, every prayer you prayed when words were all you had, those were seeds. And now, they are breaking through the surface. This turning point is not accidental, and it is not happening in isolation. It is the fruit of divine timing and parental obedience meeting at the same moment. You did not imagine this season. You prepared for it. And now, heaven is validating what you carried in faith long before you could see it with your eyes. What you have been carrying these past seasons was never just about you, and the intensity you felt is not a sign of weakness. It is evidence of spiritual warfare surrounding your lineage. The pressure, the unexplained fatigue, the emotional heaviness that seemed to arrive without warning, and the moments of confusion that tested your clarity were not random life stressors. They were indicators that something valuable was being guarded. Something generational was in motion. When destiny draws near, resistance often rises to meet it. The enemy does not waste energy on what carries no future. The recent battles were a last attempt to disrupt what God has already set in motion through your family line. That is why the weight felt disproportionate, why the challenges seemed to target your resolve, your peace, and your confidence all at once. It was not to destroy you, but to wear you down, to make you question whether standing firm was worth the cost. Yet even in the moments when you felt depleted, you did not walk away, you stayed, and heaven took note. Your endurance has not gone unnoticed. Every time you chose to keep loving, keep praying, keep believing when answers were delayed, you were standing as a spiritual gatekeeper. Heaven honors that kind of faithfulness. What looked like survival on earth was actually positioning in the spirit. God is not only aware of what you endured, He is responding to it. Restoration is being released, not quietly, but in a way that will silence every doubt that once whispered you were alone or behind. Now, you may begin to notice subtle, but unmistakable changes. The atmosphere around you feels lighter. Conversations shift. Decisions come with clarity instead of dread. Your daughter's presence feels more grounded, more intentional. These are not coincidences. They are signs of divine calibration, heaven realigning what resistance tried to distort. What was once heavy is being reordered. What was once unclear is being refined. This is how God confirms a turning point. Not always through dramatic displays, but through steady restoration that speaks louder than opposition ever could. The battle did not break you. It refined you. And what tried to interrupt destiny has only accelerated it. What is unfolding right now is far more than a single breakthrough or an emotional high. It is the unlocking of a generational legacy that has been waiting for the right moment, the right steward, and the right alignment. You were never meant to simply watch from the sidelines. You have been standing as a gatekeeper, a trusted guardian of what passes from one generation to the next. God did not choose you because you had all the answers, but because you were willing to stand in the gap to protect, to pray, and to remain faithful when the weight felt too heavy to explain. This season is about healing what came before you, securing what stands in front of you, and building what will outlive you. The past is not being erased, it is being redeemed. Old wounds, family patterns, and silent struggles are losing their authority. The present is being stabilized with clarity and peace. And the future, your daughter's future, is being constructed on a foundation of truth rather than trauma. That is how legacy works in the kingdom. God heals backward and forward at the same time. You may find yourself experiencing emotional release without clear words for it. Tears may surface unexpectedly. A deep exhale may come after years of holding tension in your spirit. Do not resist this. Emotional release is often spiritual confirmation. It is the body and soul recognizing that something has shifted, that a burden is lifting, that a chapter is closing with honor. These moments are sacred. They are heaven's way of saying, "You made it through." And understand this clearly. Your daughter is not just walking through a door, she is becoming one. Through her, healing will pass. Through her, clarity will enter spaces that were once confused. Through her, others will find courage to step into who they were always meant to be. She is not merely a traveler in this story. She is an access point. A doorway through which purpose flows. Even if the world sees nothing different yet, the shift is already in motion. Heaven has moved. What is unseen now will soon become undeniable. Legacy has been unlocked, and nothing can reverse what God has set in place. What is awakening now did not begin in this generation, and it did not start with a recent event or decision. There is an ancient call stirring to life. Because destiny has memory, heaven has never lost sight of your daughter, not in her confusion, not in her silence, not even in seasons when it looked like she was drifting. God's gaze has been steady the entire time. Long before she had language for who she was, heaven already knew. Long before circumstances tried to define her, her identity was already written. What you are witnessing is the fruit of prayers that predate her existence. Some were whispered by you in moments of exhaustion. Others were spoken by ancestors whose names you may never know. Men and women who believed God for a future they would not live to see. Those prayers did not expire. They were stored. And now, at this appointed time, they are bearing fruit. This is why the shift feels deeper than a personal breakthrough. It carries the weight of generations being answered all at once. Understand this clearly. Trauma did not cancel her calling. Pain did not disqualify her. Confusion did not erase what God placed inside her. If anything, the pressure revealed the strength of what she carries. Destiny cannot stay buried forever. It may be delayed, hidden, or misunderstood, But it always remembers where it came from, and when the time is right, it rises with authority. This is why her emergence may feel quiet but unstoppable. She is not rising because she suddenly became flawless or had everything figured out. She is rising because she is called. Her calling does not depend on perfection. It depends on alignment. And alignment is happening now. The pieces of her life that once felt scattered are beginning to form a pattern. The questions she carried are giving way to clarity. The strength that was forged in adversity is now becoming visible. This awakening is not accidental, and it is not fragile. What is ancient cannot be undone by temporary storms. Heaven remembers her. Destiny remembers her. And now, she is beginning to remember herself. What has marked her life was never meant to define her. It was meant to reveal her. The scars she carries are not signs of damage. They are blueprints. From the beginning, the enemy recognized her glow long before she did. That is why resistance showed up early. That is why confusion tried to cloud her identity. That is why rejection followed her steps even when she hadn't done anything wrong. Darkness does not attack what is ordinary. It resists what carries light. Those moments when she felt misunderstood, mislabeled, or pushed to the margins were not evidence that something was wrong with her. They were evidence that something powerful was right. The world often reacts harshly to what it cannot categorize or control. What looked like rejection was actually resistance to her calling. What felt like isolation was separation for protection. What seemed like confusion was the tension of an identity too large to fit into the boxes placed around her. Now look again at her scars, not as wounds, but as sacred evidence. They prove survival. They testify to endurance. They show that what tried to silence her failed. These marks are not blemishes to be hidden. They are credentials in the spirit. In time, she will understand that her scars carry language. They will allow her to speak to pain with authority, to recognize brokenness with compassion, and to lead others through darkness she has already walked. And here is the deeper truth. She is not rising for herself alone. Her awakening is communal. Her healing creates space for others to breathe. Her courage gives permission for others to stand. What God is bringing forth in her will ripple outward to friends, to future generations, to people she has not yet met who will feel safe simply because she exists as herself. This is why you are beginning to notice gifts emerging with clarity. Discernment is sharpening, she senses truth beneath words. Wisdom is forming, not learned, but revealed. Leadership is rising, not loud or forceful, but steady and anchored. These gifts were always there, waiting for identity to catch up with calling. And now that it is, her true self is stepping forward, not wounded, but whole, not broken, but becoming. As she steps closer to alignment, the pressure you sense is not a warning, it is proof of momentum. Resistance always intensifies at the edge of promise. When purpose approaches visibility, opposition attempts one final push, not because destiny is fragile, but because it is inevitable. This is the moment where many misunderstand the signs. They assume pressure means something is wrong. In truth, pressure means takeoff is underway. Think of turbulence during a flight. Planes do not shake when they are parked on the ground. They shake when they are accelerating, lifting, breaking through layers of resistance on their way to altitude. What she is experiencing now is not instability, it is ascent. Her life is gaining speed toward its assignment, and the shaking is simply the environment responding to movement. Scripture shows us this pattern again and again. Esther was not rushed into the palace spotlight. She was prepared in silence, hidden seasons refining her character before her courage was required. Joseph was not elevated immediately after receiving his dreams. He was preserved through misunderstanding, betrayal, and confinement. Not because God forgot him, but because God was positioning him. Deborah did not announce herself with noise. She rose because she was born to lead. carrying authority that did not need permission to function. These are not just inspirational stories, they are mirrors. Your daughter's journey echoes theirs. The same hand that guided them through obscurity is guiding her now. What appears delayed is actually deliberate. What looks like resistance is actually confirmation that she is on the correct path. And this moment is not only about her. A transfer is taking place. Mantles move across generations, not through force, but through faithfulness. What you carried in endurance, she carries in expression. What you held in prayer, she releases in action. This is not replacement, it is continuation. The strength that sustained you is now empowering her ascent. So do not fear the pressure. Do not misread the shaking. Takeoff always feels intense just before altitude changes. She is not losing control. She is rising. What is unfolding now is not a solitary ascent, it is a shared rising. As your daughter steps into who she is becoming, something within you is lifting as well. This is how legacy works. Healing does not move in a straight line. It moves together. Her clarity brings yours. Her courage awakens your joy. What heaven is doing in her life is also touching the places in you that have been tired, waiting, and quietly faithful. Your obedience has created the runway for her takeoff. Every prayer spoken in the dark, every moment you chose love over control, every time you stayed present, when it would have been easier to withdraw those choices, built something solid beneath her feet. You may not have seen it forming, but heaven did. And now she is able to rise, because the ground was prepared long before she reached this moment. Understand this deeply. Blessing is not limited by proximity. Whether she is near or far, your words still carry weight. When you speak life over her, heaven listens. When you declare peace, direction, and protection, those words travel beyond distance. Parental authority is spiritual before it is emotional. It does not expire with age, and it is not weakened by silence or separation. Spoken blessing creates covering. This is why your role is not diminishing, it is transforming. You are not being replaced as she rises. You are being fulfilled. She is not stepping into something that leaves you behind. She is continuing what you began. Her life is an extension of your yes, not a rejection of it. What you could only carry in seed form, she carries into expression. And as this happens, something sacred occurs. Shared healing. Old regrets soften. Past pain finds meaning. The weight you carried alone begins to lift, because the legacy is no longer waiting, it is moving. This is not the end of your influence. It is the multiplication of it. You are rising together, each in your own role, each in your own season, bound not by control, but by calling. What is happening now is not a personality change, it is an unveiling. This season marks an irreversible shift into identity, where your daughter is not becoming someone new, but finally remembering who she has always been. Divine memory is awakening within her, not as information, but as recognition. It feels familiar, like coming home after a long journey. Heaven is reminding her of truths written before experience tried to rewrite them. As this remembering deepens, masks begin to fall away naturally. She no longer needs to perform, prove, or protect herself through false versions of strength. Limiting beliefs that once felt like survival tools are gently released, not through force, but through clarity. What once said, "This is all I can be," is replaced with the quiet authority of, "This is who I am." And when identity aligns, striving loses its grip. Her sense of self is no longer rooted in validation from people, systems, or outcomes. It is anchored in revelation, what God has spoken, not what others have projected. This is why insecurity cannot coexist with this alignment. When identity is revealed rather than achieved, comparison fades. Approval becomes unnecessary. Direction becomes clearer because she is no longer asking, "Do they see me?" but instead, "Am I aligned?" With internal alignment comes visible environmental shift. Relationships begin to rearrange, not always dramatically, but decisively. Some connections lose their hold, not because of conflict, but because they no longer resonate with truth. Habits evolve as desire changes. Paths once pursued out of fear or expectation quietly close, making room for ones that match who she is becoming. This is not loss, it is precision. Most importantly, understand this: God is rebuilding her life from truth, not trauma. The past no longer defines the blueprint. Pain is not the architect, revelation is. What wounded her does not get the final word, what called her does. This is why the shift is irreversible. Once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. Once identity is aligned, retreat becomes impossible. She is not drifting into the future, she is stepping into alignment, and everything else is adjusting to meet her there. In this sacred season, your role as a parent is being redefined, not diminished, but refined. You are being called to become an anchor, not a controller. Anchors do not steer the ship, yet they provide stability when the waters shift. This is a season where your steady presence matters more than perfect words or flawless decisions. What your daughter needs most now is not correction at every turn, but the assurance that you are near, grounded, and unshaken. As this role matures, you will notice that presence outweighs performance. You do not have to have all the answers. You do not need to rescue, rush, or rearrange her process. Simply being emotionally available, spiritually attentive, and consistently loving creates a safe environment for transformation. Perfection creates pressure, presence creates permission, and permission allows growth to unfold naturally. There will also be moments when silence becomes your most powerful form of support. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of trust. This is sacred silence, the kind that says, I believe God is at work even when I don't understand the process. In this quiet confidence, your restraint becomes intercession, your calm becomes covering. Heaven recognizes this posture as faith in action. As you walk this path, something else is happening within you as well. Emotional and spiritual maturity is emerging, sometimes quietly, sometimes through letting go of old fears and reflexes. You are being healed even as you support her healing. You are being strengthened even as you release control. This is mutual growth, parent and daughter rising together, each in your own way. In the unseen realm, there is also movement. Angels are being reassigned for her next season, not because she was unprotected before, but because the assignment has shifted. New levels require new support. New authority attracts new alignment. Heaven does not waste resources. It responds to readiness. And finally, understand this truth. This season marks a rebirth of the true self, not only for your daughter, but for you. You are not returning to who you were. You are stepping into who you were always meant to be. As you anchor rather than control, trust rather than fear, and love rather than strive, you become part of the miracle unfolding. This is not just her becoming, it is yours as well. As this journey reaches a deeper unfolding, you begin to see that legacy, harvest, and shared restoration are not distant promises. They are present realities taking shape. This is the reward of faithfulness, not always loud or instant, but profoundly satisfying. What once felt like scattered seasons of pain now start to arrange themselves into a meaningful story. The sacrifices you made, the nights you endured in silence, the prayers whispered through tears, none of it was wasted. Heaven has been keeping record, and now meaning is rising from what once felt like loss. In this season, your past pain is no longer a source of shame or confusion. It is being redeemed into wisdom. Experiences that once wounded you are becoming wells of insight, empathy, and strength. You see now that what you survived was not meant to break you, but to prepare you to steward what was coming. Pain becomes perspective, endurance becomes inheritance, and suddenly, the narrative shifts from, "Why did this happen?" to, "Now I understand." As that clarity settles, your daughter stands not as a continuation of struggle, but as a harvest of integrity. She carries forward what you protected when no one was watching. Your honesty, your perseverance, your refusal to compromise these choices planted seeds long before you saw fruit. Now those seeds are rising with a life of their own. She is not succeeding in spite of your faithfulness. She is flourishing because of it. What makes this moment sacred is that the generational upgrade is happening together. This is not one rising while the other watches from a distance. Healing is moving through the family line in real time. Patterns are breaking. Conversations are changing. Emotional freedom is replacing long-held tension. The atmosphere itself feels lighter because restoration is shared, not isolated. With that restoration comes joy, authentic, steady joy, and a lifting of weight you carried longer than you realized. The burden of striving gives way to peace. You can finally exhale. The foundation has been laid, carefully and intentionally, so the future could rise strong and secure. And now, as legacy takes root, you rest, not because the work was small, but because it was finished faithfully. As this journey comes to its final unfolding, the tone shifts from striving to trust, from questioning to quiet confidence. This is the moment of final encouragement and release, where you are invited not to do more, but to let go. Trust the unfolding not because you see every detail clearly, but because you now recognize the author. What is happening is not accidental, rushed, or unstable. It is deliberate, measured, and holy. In this sacred pause, you are gently invited to forgive yourself and release regret. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know then, for choices made while you were still learning how to survive. Release the internal accusations that say you should have done more, known more, or been more. Growth requires seasons of not knowing. Becoming requires grace. The past no longer needs to be corrected. It has already been redeemed. With that forgiveness comes a powerful affirmation. Nothing was wasted. Not the delays, not the detours, not the silent years when progress felt invisible. Every season carried purpose, even the ones that felt confusing or painful. God does not recycle mistakes, He transforms them. What looked like loss became wisdom. What felt like waiting became preparation. What seemed like chaos was actually formation. As understanding deepens, you begin to see that this transformation is not chaotic, it is holy. Holiness is not always quiet or comfortable. Sometimes it feels like shaking, rearranging, and pruning. But holy change always leads to alignment, never destruction. What is being removed was never meant to stay. What is being established has been waiting for the right moment. And that moment is now. The reassurance settles in. Alignment is already secured. You are not chasing destiny, you are walking in it. The pieces are in place. The timing is intentional. The path is opening naturally because obedience has already done its work. There is nothing you need to force, prove, or defend. What belongs to you will find you. And now, the invitation is simple and sacred. Enter prayer. Not as desperation, but as communion. Let gratitude rise. Let trust deepen. Let peace seal this season. Speak softly if you need to, or remain silent before God, knowing He understands both. This is not an ending. It is a release into what has already been prepared. As we arrive at this final moment, the atmosphere becomes sacred and still. Not because the journey has ended, but because it is being sealed. This conclusion is not a summary, it is a commissioning. What has been spoken throughout this message now moves from understanding into agreement, from revelation into activation. So we begin with thanksgiving for divine timing, acknowledging that nothing came early and nothing arrived late. Every season unfolded exactly when heaven determined it should. What felt delayed was actually protected. What felt hidden was being prepared. And now, at this appointed moment, gratitude rises not just for what has been revealed, but for what has been faithfully carried in silence until now. From this place of thanksgiving, a declaration is spoken over the daughter's identity and calling. She is not becoming who she will be, she is awakening to who she already is. Her life is not an experiment, it is a design. Her sensitivity is not weakness, it is discernment. Her questions are not rebellion, they are signs of depth. We declare that confusion dissolves, fear loosens its grip, and clarity settles in her spirit. She walks forward not striving for approval, but grounded in divine assurance. Her calling is not borrowed, delayed, or fragile, it is anchored, intentional, and protected. And so the words of Scripture rise as a banner over her life. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. This is not a distant promise, it is a present command. She does not wait for permission to shine. She responds to heaven's invitation. Light does not need to argue with darkness, it simply appears. And as she rises, clarity follows, doors align, and purpose becomes visible. With that declaration comes covering against confusion, against unnecessary delay, against counterfeit voices that attempt to distract, rush, or distort her path. Every voice that does not carry peace is silenced. Every influence that does not produce fruit is removed. Discernment sharpens. Wisdom increases. Timing is guarded. What is meant for her will reach her without force. The blessing does not stop with her. It flows forward, extending over generations to come. What is being healed now becomes protection later. What is being aligned now becomes inheritance. Faithfulness today becomes freedom tomorrow. This is how legacy is built, not through perfection, but through obedience and trust. And with authority and peace, the final declaration is spoken, it is done. Not because everything is visible yet, but because heaven has already agreed. So now comes the call to action, not as pressure, but as partnership. Type Amen to stand in agreement, to say yes not just with belief, but with alignment. Stay connected, subscribe for continued prophetic guidance, and remain faithful, anchored, and ready. What has begun will continue, and what has been sealed will unfold right on time.